Welcome to Finding the Truth with Myke Hideous. I'm an artist, photographer, and an author. In the late 80s, I created a band called The Empire Hideous. Until 2009, I was a PC liberal Democrat, after which I became an independent. I believe in science, and I consider myself an alchemist who seeks answers to difficult questions. You're listening to Finding the Truth with me, Myke Hideous. Hey folks, thanks for listening, and we are broadcasting today. Today's date is January 9th, 2024, and thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in, and I'd like to introduce my co-host, engineer, producer, and colleague and friend, Z. Say hello, Z.
Hello, Z.
All right. Go back.
Good
in
evening,
your cage.
everybody.
Go back in your cage.
Fine. I'll stay behind the curtain here.
All right. So what's going on? What's happening out there?
Well, you know, it's another week of interesting news stories, but I think you had the idea, and we're going to do today's topic as the episode title is "The State of Morality in America." That's right. And that is definitely a heavy topic. Hopefully we can maintain the audience's attention. But it's honestly a very important topic, given what the news has been reporting lately, and just the concern in general for the state of our nation.
This is true.
So, did you have some thoughts to get us started on this one, Myke?
Oh, where do I begin? America, the morality of America has stooped incredibly low. There was a point in time. Here's an interesting fact for you. If you go back just before the 60s, even maybe the early to mid 70s, there were people who still went to church. I, having grown up a Roman Catholic, I used to go to church up until I was 13. I was forced to go, by the way. I never wanted to go.
You were literally dragged, kicking and screaming? I mean,
No, I was told, because if I didn't go, I'd get my ass beat.
Well, I think we all had that experience. I don't know how many kids are just like, oh, yes, I'm ready to go to church. It really does depend on how much religion you get at home. But, yeah, I was never, enthusiastic about going to church, but I certainly I wouldn't call it as dragged or forced to go.
Right. Well, what I'm getting at is this. So at a point in time, there were still people who went to church.
Sure.
For a matter of fact, my father, who just died 2022, he used to go to church every single day from 1982. No, wait. Was it 82? From 1982 until 2018. My father went to church every day. Now, I'm not going to get into all the details, but I want you to know he went to church every day for me. Okay?
Okay.
He made a commitment to God that he would go to church every day. This is when I was 16 in 1982. I got my first bout with cancer, and I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I had to get major surgery and all kinds of shit. He made a vow to God that he'd go to church every day if God saved my life.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Commitment to this man was unbelievable. Every single fucking day, my dad went to church for decades. So, I stopped going to church at age 13 after I got my confirmation. I got, the whole CCD Sunday school. I went to get my penance, my communion, and eventually confirmation. So the whole point to it is this. Are you still there?
Yes, I am. I just muted myself because I was getting up and it would have made noise.
Okay, because I did see the mute. I didn't know what was happening. All right, I'll continue.
Yes.
So what I'm getting at is there are people who went to church and were inspired by these, how would I describe it as? These formalities of living, these methods of living. Lead a good life, work hard, donate to the church, raise your
Sounds
family.
like principles.
That's a good word for it, yes. Raise a family, have a wife, procreate, so on and so forth. That was the way, like the American way, for many years. Okay, so there were morals in those people who were Christians, and still are to this day. All right, fast forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's honestly just to give credit to Judeo-Christian, beliefs. The Ten Commandments says it all.
Right.
Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, and if you have that faith, it's certainly you want to follow those rules.
Right. So here's the point. So you and it's not just Christianity. It is also other religions. When all the religions were, except Islam and Muslim. I'm not part of that. I mean, that's just a whole other crazy thing I can't even describe right now. So for right now, I'm going to talk about Judaism and Christianity. So those were the two primary religions of America. The Muslim religion was really not a big thing in America until after 9/11, and I challenge anybody on that subject.
How do you mean that? Do you mean the population of Muslims, or
no?
Those that identified as Muslim?
Exposing it as a religion of America, which it is not. America was brought up on Judeo-Christian values. The Muslim religion was brought into the American system after 9/11, when George Bush was telling us, well, the Muslims are our friends and this, that, and the other thing, and everything all of a sudden was like Muslim this and Muslim that. Anyway, but that's not my point. That's a whole other subject. So here's the thing. So you have America brought up on these values of Judeo-Christian values, and it was about how to be a good person working in America, raising your family, and so on. Fast forward to around, I'd say like the late 70s, even in the 80s, particularly in the 80s, you start having a decline in people who believe in religion, who go to church or the synagogue, and they start falling away from their religions. Okay. Then you also had the whole scandal.
After the 60s.
You also had the whole scandal with the Catholic Church in how there were things going on with children, and the people got angry about that, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
So, here's what happens after that downfall of people no longer going to church and believing in God, or becoming atheists, or being raised atheists. You have this gap. Now you've got people who are growing up, and this is just a portion of what I'm getting to. You've got people growing up without the morals of religion to lead a prosperous, productive life. In addition to that, you have the downfall of education. You have the downfall of parenting. You have a lot of kids getting pregnant at a young age. As a result, their children are not being taught properly. You have a divorce rate that it skyrocketed through the 70s and 80s, and even now. You had people who don't want to get married because of their career. So all of these factors are all coupled together, and you have the loss, little by little by little, of morals in America. And that's
exactly
a very sad thing.
And what you describe is really how things have been deteriorating over the last number of decades. And certainly the 60s hippie revolution started making people question their beliefs and question the family structure and the traditions as well. Yep. So it's
plus
definitely
they were into communism.
Well, sure, or just basic Marxism or socialism, but
Yep.
there's definitely that was one of the periods in time where it really became out in the open, essentially, that there are other belief systems than what you were raised on, and then people could feel the right to pick and choose because this is a free country, of course. But it certainly has been. I just want to bring up another interesting point from my perspective, and just looking at our culture in general. Well, just to give you some background for the audience to say, I was raised Episcopalian. And so I had my background and morals come from that. I also was a Boy Scout at one point, and they're very big about teaching principles and values and morals.
Right.
And it's one of the things that I wonder in my world, when I've had conversations with other people, is like, where do we get morals if you don't get it from religion or get it from a group or organization like, the Boy Scouts or 4-H or for some
Parenting.
other, club, or from parenting, family, having one of those mentors essentially in your family that, gives you some idea what right and wrong is.
That's right.
But it's just stunning the lack of where it doesn't seem to come into people's minds, of thinking in moral ways. So I'm going to bring this around to a current news story. I just was looking up, and this is just as of today. It's a headline story. Hang on a second. Let me bring it back up. And this one is about this guy who decided to basically murder his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy is a Mayo Clinic doctor. And he's charged with murdering his wife, who was poisoned after they had an open relationship and it failed. So basically, whoops, sorry. I'm getting background noise. It wasn't broadcasted. Anyway, so the story goes on to talk about how this doctor allegedly poisoned his wife with unnecessary gout medication. A theory allegedly supported by the man's search history and strange behavior after her death. So it's just amazing that this is a story because this guy, you still with me?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm sorry, just lost the visuals. Anyway, it's just a stunning story on the surface of it, because all right, you're having an open relationship, and so he suddenly starts feeling that he, wants to be possessive. I mean, I'm just going to read into the story a little bit, but this is the solution, is to murder your wife?
Right.
I mean, I really do not understand how this is an option in any scenario. And it's like a daily story, really. You can read about things about people doing amazingly stupid things. There's another story I just saw earlier about how a stranger walked into somebody's backyard in the middle of the night. And the owner of the house went out with a gun and told him to get off the property or else I'll shoot. And he walked towards him. Mm-hmm. And the guy's gone now. Well, so he's never going to trespass again. But it's like, what are you thinking?
A great point, Z, and that is this. I have noticed when I watch some of the clips that I see on YouTube or wherever of criminals or people being convicted or in court, a lot of them are young, like teenagers who have killed people in the most horrific ways. They're all tattooed on their face and everything, gang members, and they laugh and they taunt the parents or the wife or husband of the victims. There's no remorse by these people. They are cold-hearted, and I sincerely believe that a portion of the reason why they are like this is because, not fully, but a portion of the reason is because what is being displayed on TV, movies, on the internet, through video games, where killing is just another way or another part of life. It's survive or be killed. And that's in my opinion, that's the mentality that some of these people have.
Well, you're not wrong, and it's like they are definitely there's a desensitization. Blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm trying to say.
Desensitization?
The people are being desensitized.
Yeah, that's better.
Towards basically violence against one another. But I'm going to just bring it up in a couple of different ways. It is stunning because as you were describing that, it made me think of this story from last year about the middle of the year in the fall. And it was out of Arizona. And there was a 64-year-old retired police officer who was bicycling down the road one morning.
That's exactly who I was just talking about. The
that's
kids
what you were
in the court. Yeah, they were like
right, exactly. Yeah. So that's what I thought you might have been talking about. And their behavior in the court is so just not even disrespectful to the family, but to humanity.
Exactly.
I mean, what is wrong with you? And I'm pretty sure I know you're not a gamer, but there's a game out there called Grand Theft Auto.
I know what it is.
And essentially,
I never played it, but
it's a huge virtual world where you can do illegal things all the time. And so getting in a car and running over people is something you do all the time in Grand Theft Auto. So, and you get, rewarded for it.
Right. So the question then becomes, do you stifle freedom of speech and freedom of expression through these games and or movies and whatever other media you're displaying some? Does that stifle a freedom in America to say, hey, I'm going to write a movie. Let's say I'm Quentin Tarantino and I write the movie Kill Bill. Like 300 people got killed in that movie. So was Quentin Tarantino wrong to make that film, which is completely fantasy, as we all know, but some people see it and they think, oh, I could do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be a gangbanger. I'm going to be cool.
Well, it's interesting. When you were describing that, I just thought back to another conversation we had about movies, and a movie you asked me to watch recently, and we talked about it, but it's called Birth of a Nation.
Ah, yes. Yes.
And I don't know if you saw that other clip I sent you recently, but they basically described how that when that movie came out, I guess this has more or less been verified, there was a bunch of actual lynchings that occurred.
Yes. Because
of how in that movie it portrayed the KKK in a positive light, and when it started getting played around the country, people were inspired.
That's right.
And that's another actual point that maybe it's really good I brought this up, because I'm seriously really concerned about the state of morality in America, but in all humans, but specifically this is my country, so this is the one where we should be free to. I don't know if freedom means that you should be moral, but here's my point. Going to another movie, The Gangs of New York by Martin Scorsese.
Great movie.
Yep. And it depicts the time during the draft riots in New York City. Right. In the 1860s.
New Amsterdam, if I recall, right?
Yep.
New Amsterdam.
And, I watched that movie and I was just stunned because it's about the gangs, which are morally corrupt individuals that have no problem killing, other individuals just over the fact that they have a different belief system or whatever, or they have an accent. And then you actually have the politicians, which are greedy in the same thing, and they're looking to do underhanded deals, and so they're immoral.
Do you remember who the president was back then? Was it Wilson?
No, it wasn't, because this is 1860. So this is this 1860 is when Lincoln was elected. So Lincoln was president, and he instituted the draft for the Civil War.
I was thinking of either the mayor or the governor that was in that movie.
Oh.
And I can't recall what his name was.
I don't remember.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Lincoln was the president at that point. Yeah. My apologies.
And people were really pissed. And they were, again, there's the just general racism thing against any other ethnicities. And obviously towards the black population, being that what the Civil War was all about. It just goes to show you how this is ingrained in our society. And definitely, morals get to be taught, but so does immoral activity get to be taught.
I want to stop you for 1 second. I want to stop you for 1 second.
We're in the 1860s.
Hold that thought. Okay? Hold that thought of what you're talking about. Okay, so I want to make a comment about Civil War. Civil War was not entirely because of slavery.
No. Yeah.
And here are some of the facts which are no longer taught in American schools as basic factual education. So, number one, excessive taxes were imposed on the agrarian, I think I said that word right, economy.
Agrarian, yes.
Did I say it right? Okay. Of the
Close
southern
enough.
of the southern states, which was predominantly used for infrastructure improvements and in the industrial north. Cultural values was another reason. Another reason was decades of simmering tension over the addition of slave states in the westward expansion of America. Another one was the economic control of the federal government that would essentially favor the northern states, and then state rights and the rights of succession. So that was those were the main reasons for the Civil War. A lot of people think it was just about slavery, and that is not the case. So
well, it's not just about slavery, but I mean,
you just got an educational lesson in Civil War.
Well, you're not wrong. There is definitely other reasons, and one of the contentious parts in Gangs of New York, because that was a book that was written in the early 1900s that Scorsese used to make the movie, and they pointed out how much of the product that was being produced in the South came through New York City. So it's tough for people in New York City to be wanting to fight those in the South when basically that's where, business was coming from. So they didn't have any other source of imports, necessarily at that point, except for the South. But the thing is that, from my perspective, it's like I just see it. Morality gets to be taught just like immorality. And if we're dealing with generational hatred, racism, and immoral, behavior, that's where we're at today.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's so stunning to me how often I read a news story and it's like, what in your right mind makes you think you could get away with that and be free? There's another woman last year who went and murdered this girl who was a cyclist because she thought this girl was dating her previous boyfriend. Mm-hmm. And then she ran away to a foreign country after murdering this girl and got plastic surgery and still got captured and brought back to the United States. And at one point while she was in jail, she tried to break out and run away. It's like, where do you think you're going after you committed the murder and everybody knows you did it?
Well,
where are you going to try and enjoy your life and, after you've made this horrific decision? Like, it's stunning,
Well, that's the thing. What I was getting to is that a lot of it today, there are two main points that you can point at to say, here's the decline. A, parenting. B, education.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can throw religion in there, but as you can see, I'm really not a religious person. So here's what I'm getting at. I can respect those.
Oh, for the audience, there's a pentagram on his T-shirt, just to make sure everybody's just listening. Inverted pentagram.
So what I'm saying is that I can respect people who want to better their lives, their communities, their families, because let's face it, in order to make things better, you have to have good communities, you have to have good family, you have to have people who follow the rules. When you don't follow the rules, you're basically stepping back into tribal times where tribes fought against each other and killed and plundered and raped and did the things that they did to their opposing tribe. So here we are in what's considered to be the modern times in society. And you have, again, like I see images on social media of kids in high school threatening their teachers, beating other kids within an inch of their lives. Now, when I was in high school, okay, I graduated high school in 1984. Hello.
Hello.
When I was in high school, I went to John F. Kennedy High School in Paterson, New Jersey. And do you know we used to have a rifle class? We used to have classes where kids used to fire rifles. You know, and
I believe it.
Nobody ever thought of taking that gun and pointing it at another student and killing them.
Well,
because the gym teacher would have beat the living friggin' hell out of you for even thinking such a thing.
Well, I don't even think the thing is that that's actually a perfect example, and I'm glad you brought this up because one of the things that's clear from history is the fact that 100 years ago, every family and every kid knew how to use a gun for the most part because at some point their father taught them, or their whoever in their family taught them how to use it.
Usually the father.
Right. But I mean, yeah, depending on how your family unit is, but it could be grandpa, it could be, the neighbor, but in either case, guns were plentiful. And there was never, actually it's kind of interesting.
It was a tool of the family.
Yeah,
you used it for hunting and protection.
But, now you have clearly, disturbed children that are able to go to the schools and do something to hurt the other people.
And the teachers have their hands tied. They cannot do anything because if they do, the first thing the parents will do is sue them for putting their hands on another child or getting loud with the child and trying to, put it in its right place.
There's that fear, but I mean, essentially, I'm a big proponent at this point of just having armed guards, in the schools.
You're going to have to at some point.
You don't have to do the metal detectors and the whole, bag searching thing, but, at the very least have somebody on premises that has a gun and knows how to use it and is trustworthy. But regardless, getting back to just, 100 years ago, actually, if you actually do the Google, I did this actually after one of the last incidents, and you look up the history of school shootings, it actually goes back a couple of centuries. But it's never been as prevalent and with as many victims as it is nowadays because, of course, the modern, weapons that are available. But, it's just really sad that, at this point, whatever was happening, you'd have to read through the history. I spent like a good half an hour reading back over these different school shootings. And it was all, sometimes it was mostly adults against the kids. But, now we've got the kids killing the kids. Yeah.
So teachers were killing kids?
Not necessarily teachers, but I'd have to remember, again, this is our audience, well, maybe I'll try and put this in the description or something, a link to Wikipedia, but there's a whole list of events and there's all sorts of reasons. And I think even one guy set fire to the school while, the kids couldn't get out or something like
goodness,
that.
That's horrible. Well, in modern times, where we are now, a lot of what's happening now is as a result of Columbine.
Well, sure. It seems
1990. What was that? 98 or 99? 98.
I think it was 98, but
Somewhere
that certainly
98.
was a point back in history. It seems to have been, picking up since then.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in any of the merchandise that I sell, you can go to MykeHideous.com. Just like the name of our program here, Finding the Truth with Myke Hideous. If you go to MykeHideous.com, you can get my book, which is called King of an Empire to the Shoes of a Misfit. It is about my years as a performer and a musician, and covers a range from 1988 to 2014. It also talks about my short but very successful point in time when I sang for the famous punk rock band known as the Misfits from Lodi, New Jersey. And you can also get my t-shirts, my horrible artwork, horror design, blankets, t-shirts, throw pillows, girls' dresses, so on and so forth, as well as my music, downloadable CDs, what else? I don't even. Just go to the damn website and check it out. So yeah, that's what I got. You can and the most recent thing is the book. Hopefully I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks I'm gonna have a whole bunch of new T-shirts up and ready to go for sale. And that's not just the music stuff from Empire Hideous, the band that I was in, but this whole other section of design of clothing that I have with my artwork designs on them, and I call it horrible artwork. And it's going to be all kinds of stuff like that, old, creepy stuff. In case anybody doesn't know my background, I kind of dabble in the occult, so all creepy, cool stuff like that. So yeah, folks, if you're interested in anything, go to MykeHideous.com. Click on the shop section and go down, and a couple other clicks and you're there. Thanks very much, guys. All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast Finding the Truth with Myke Hideous. I'm Myke Hideous, and my co-host and partner in crime, Z. Say hello, Z.
Hello, Z.
Now go back in your cage. So, as you may have been listening and heard, we've been talking about morals and the decline of morals in America. I did want to make one more final comment in this, because I didn't get to finish it. But what I was getting at is the whole thing with America and how the younger generation seems to, you hear it all the time. Like when we were kids, you heard your parents say, these kids today. Well, here I am, 57 years old, and I'm saying, these fucking kids today. The problem with these kids today is that they are losing the ability to be properly, I shouldn't say all of them. There are a lot of smart kids out there. But there's a very good portion of them, a large portion of them, in which are not being properly educated or parented. Now, I watch footage of children, high school, college, in like China, Japan, any of these Asian countries, even Arabic countries, and they are so like militantly focused in being educated, in addition to parenting. Now, like for the Arabic countries, you've got the religion is a big part of education, so they're very strict. Okay,
it's more than a big part. I mean, I was I watched this one particular channel on YouTube, and just to underscore, like, basically what a world of difference it is growing up in a Orthodox Muslim family compared to the West. And I wasn't really aware of this, to this degree. Yes, when you're in Islam, you study, the Quran and all the texts. But when you're a child, I guess this is for anybody that want to convert to Islam. I don't remember how big the Quran is. I know it's definitely, probably 1,000 pages or more or something like that. But as a child, you have to memorize every word of the Quran. And so your first 12 years of education...
Same with the Jews.
Well...
Yeah. Hasidic Jews they have to learn that too. They have to read the Torah.
Right. Well, I don't know if it's word for word. They need to know
Practically.
Well, it's not the same thing. I mean, because when I watch this, the YouTube channel I was talking about is called Indigo Traveler, and it's very cool because this guy is from New Zealand, and he's able to get into a lot of countries with his passport that certainly an American probably wouldn't go to. So, like, he went to Mozambique, and recently he was in he was in Haiti as well not too long ago. I mean, Haiti is like the last place on earth anybody who is Caucasian would want to find themselves. And yet, like, the standard of living, that, just going back to the Muslim thing, when he was in one particular country, I think it was Mozambique, and they went to a school and they talked to the students. He talked to the students there, and like, what do you do? Oh, we just study the Quran every day. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm pretty sure even in Judaism, your average student does something different than just study the Torah every day. But I mean, we don't need to get deep into Islam so much, but yes, to your point, I mean, religion, if it's not part of your family or taught to you, where do you get it?
Right. So again, like I was trying to finish up here, is that you compare it. I compare the education system to these other countries, and there is simply no comparison, especially within large cities. For example, New York City, San Francisco, Chicago, a lot of urban areas where you've got kids that they are brought up in the streets, so to speak. They go to school and they bring the streets to the school. And if you mess around with them, they'll pop your ass. Anyway, to finalize things, all I'm saying is that there are some serious problems going on in this country with the new generation that is coming up, being educated. I mean, let's face it. You saw it all with. You see it constantly with when a conservative, all right? Now, for the record, I am not a conservative. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. But when I watch these conservatives...
So, I mean, you want to be... Just to clarify this for the audience, so you're just an independent, or do you feel like a libertarian at all?
I'm an independent. I mean, I didn't want to bring that up. That's not part of the topic that I'm trying.
You're just not a part of any party.
No, I'm an independent. I mean,
Yes.
that's what I'm listed as.
Okay.
I won't let the government know what party I'm leaning towards because it's none of their business. So here's what I was getting at. What the fuck was I getting at?
Have a senior moment. It's okay. Just relax there, Grandpa.
So, you see these conservatives who go to do talks at colleges. Ben Shapiro, who's that other guy? Jesse Waters,
Well,
I think.
I guess he does some
I
touring.
can't remember. Some of these people
Ben
were
Shapiro
conservative.
definitely makes it rounds.
Right.
Brett
So
Cooper is another one that's...
Right, so let me finish before I forget.
Go ahead.
These conservatives go to these colleges, and the left, they protest, they go into the auditorium where they're speaking, they swear, they curse at them, they give them the middle finger, F you, this, that, and the other thing. But yet when they speak, they want you to listen. So it just goes to show you the ignorance that is taught, or lack of teaching in college, where you're supposed to be an adult, where you're supposed to learn how to communicate with other people and negotiate or have a conversation when you're at odds with each other, which is the American way. That's how we work things out, or at least we're supposed to. But yet, these younger, woke, left-wing, politically correct, liberal crackpots, in my opinion, go to these talks, these speeches, and they just, if you're not on their side, they don't appreciate you. So again, there's a lack of understanding on how to communicate with other people, and that's coming from a college.
Yeah, well, that's part of what they're being educated.
Right. It's an indoctrination.
It is, because, I mean, they're being taught, like, this is the way it is, and, don't believe your parents and what you get here outside of the classroom.
Let me ask you a question, Zay.
Well, hang on, let me just, really stress that point, because I have a friend who's come out of the education system recently, and I get arguments with him all the time, because he definitely has the Marxist socialist perspective on the world. He was venting the other day about rich people and billionaires and how they don't pay enough in taxes. And it's just like, are you serious? They pay more in taxes than the rest of us do.
They pay more than any of us do.
Right, and like they already do all these philanthropic things if they're smart about it. But it's the system is so corrupted. Again, back to my point, literally for the last 150, 200 years, and I can't recall who it was as a founding father, but it may have been Franklin. But he pointed out that if we are not able to maintain a country that both had faith and morals, I think he may have used the term morals, then we're not going to be able to keep the republic. Mm-hmm. Because the Constitution they made is for people that have that moral foundation of Judeo-Christian values.
Right, and let me stress something. To any of you out there listening who think that America is a democracy, think of this. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, not to the democratic or democracy for which to the republic. It is a republic country, not a
democracy. They did that on purpose because they knew a pure democracy just becomes a bully state. That's one party gets, the upper hand, and the other party doesn't get any say.
Perfect example of what's happening right now.
Yep. Exactly, and they're doing everything they can to stay in power through this next election season.
Oh yeah,
which is again back to our concerns,
including trying to jail the very leading Republican candidate of the country right now. All right, no matter how much you hate Trump, you cannot deny the facts of what he did as a president for 4 years. They want to sweep that under the rug because that is what the Democratic Party has become. And I can say this, when I was a Democrat, I followed like goose step. Or if whatever they said, I listened and I followed. When Giuliani was mayor of New York City prior to 2001 and the 9/11 issue, everybody was saying on the Democratic side, I had friends all over who were Democrats, politically correct liberal Democrats, and they were all saying the same thing. Giuliani's a Nazi. So did I.
Right.
I said it too, because that's what they were saying, and I followed the goose step.
Yep. And that's what groupthink is all about. I mean, I'm using actually a term from Orwell, Orwell's book, but it is a mentality of the group. And I used to, just to clarify for the audience as well, I was a bleeding heart liberal as well. I transformed more in the early 2000s from listening to talk radio because I had long commutes and I got tired of listening to music. And suddenly I started listening to people have conversations about the issues of the day. And I realized there was more than one perspective on most issues. Not most, all issues. There's always two sides to every story. Mm-hmm. So, it's so difficult just having to deal with the perspective that they can't be open-minded. Yeah. And I'm sorry, getting back to what I was saying before is like it's a group mentality. And one of the things that you hear a lot from the left side of the aisle is that they talk about groups of people. They'll lump all the Republicans in the world or MAGA Republicans or whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. And I've never had that perspective in my life. I look at everybody as individuals, and I cannot really stomach the perspective of like, I don't like all of them over there for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. It's like, sure, or let's go to business because that's an easy one for people to pick on. A lot of people hate big business, and they're going to bitch about Bezos and the other billionaires in the world that run all sorts of organizations. And it's just like the whole organization isn't evil. It's just the guys that, make the decisions. I'll easily go pick on Mark Zuckerberg. That guy, how he started his career, if you ever seen The Social Network on Netflix or wherever else is streaming now, that's a great telling of a story of how that guy's an asshole. Mm-hmm. I mean, his very first website was called Face Smash, and it's where he set up a website where he hacked into the Harvard computer systems, was able to get all these images of the female co-eds, and he created a website in one night to let people look through all the pictures of the girls and pick ones that were hot and which ones were not.
What a douche.
And literally, this is a true story. And that's one of the things that, he got in serious trouble with Harvard, but he was arrogant about it. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it's just a fascinating movie if you have the time to see it, but that is just the perspective from me is like, I don't look at groups of people. I don't think of business as all evil. Most people that are wealthy is what gives most of us our jobs, and they own most of, the companies, and they help employ us. And that's just part of what it is to live in a capitalist society. But, not every person is evil. It's always a percentage of whatever group you want to talk about is the real problem or the one that makes the most noise.
That's right. In fact, if I may just add to the comment about Mark Zuckerberg, for those of you who don't know, this will make you hate billionaires even more. Mark Zuckerberg is currently building a massive above ground and underground mansion in Hawaii. Very secretive home that is mostly underground. It's costing him $200 million to make it.
Pocket change.
The walls are around. What am I trying to say here? There's all walls around it for complete and utter privacy.
Barricade, moat.
All the construction workers that are working on this project have to sign an NDA. So it's this massive mansion above ground, and then it's like a mansion bunker underground. Mm-hmm. And with like this elaborate subterranean rooms and corridors.
Sounds like a James Bond villain, doesn't it?
Yeah,
like
right?
one of those places, like
so
Moonraker.
And it's just basically underneath the actual house itself. The walls are made of metal and concrete, blast-proof doors, rooms for growing his own food, his own water supply, and a nuclear blast-resistant bunker. As a matter of fact, the guy who is building this for him is from New Zealand. And this guy from New Zealand who builds these enormous bunkers for billionaires has had 11 billionaires as clients for him to make these bunkers. And in fact, I think they're in New Zealand. They're in New Zealand. So
sure. Because that's probably where they think they're going to be safest down there.
Right. So here's the thing: that they get all the money that they get. And let's say, what's Zuckerberg worth now? Like
billions.
Several billions. Okay.
Oh yeah, $200 million is honestly
it's a drop in a bucket.
Change. Yeah.
So I mean, here's my. I mean, if I can just put my 2 cents in, I don't have any problems with billionaires.
Your name's on the show, dude. You can put more than 2 cents in if you want.
if you want to become a billionaire or a millionaire or just rich in general, I'm all for you, man. Go for it. That's what America is. If you want to get to that, if you want to work hard, and I mean, let's face it, there's some devious undertones that take place in getting to the top, because you don't get to the top by being a nice guy. You just don't. You got to be a bastard. All right?
You got to be an asshole to somebody.
That's right. So, but nevertheless, here's the thing. So you have people who are smart enough or have the desire enough to want to get to that level, and I'm okay with that. As you said before, these people they're gonna put money back into the system. They're gonna hire people like me to, I don't know, draw something for them or whatever, and that's what it's all about. So to put these people, not all of them, some of them maybe, but to put all of them into one category as being bad people, I don't believe that one bit. I can't say there's a fine line between doing things the right way and doing things in a kind way or devious way. All I know is that you should be able to separate the good people from the bad people by the actions that they perform.
Well, when your words match your actions, you say you're going to do something and you get it done, which is one of the things I can credit, honestly, the former president with. Trump, everything he said he was going to do, he got done.
That's right.
And I take that, honestly, full credit to him, because he's a businessman first and he knows how to make things work. And Joe Biden has never had a paycheck from any place else other than the government in his entire life.
And for 47 years prior to him being a president, he did nothing.
Not a thing, no bills, nothing that he created.
And he was a racist. And he was a racist.
On to a bunch, well, he definitely hung out with the segregationists. Mm-hmm. But yet he was down in a church in North Carolina where, a massacre happened. He decided to slam everybody out. I mean, I got to say also, just to say it clearly, this man is so full of hatred. I mean, I can't remember the last time he spoke in public without pissing off half the country. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how's that going to work out for him? And I don't know.
Listen, man. You know what? For all these Democrats who voted for him, F you. You get what you deserve right now. Your inflation, your gas prices, all your bills going up. You brought that on, not us.
Same
We
with
had a good
independence there.
economy when Trump was president. And no matter how much you hate him and how much you might want to criticize me or Z for liking this man, the reason I voted for him was because he wasn't a slime bucket POS politician like all the rest of them are. Because that's how I feel about politicians now. Trump was the only man I ever voted for, ever, who did what he said he was going to do, and then some. He did more than the last 5 presidents before him. And there's no debating that. You want to listen to CNN and MSNBC and ABC and CBS, whatever, they put him down constantly because they have an agenda.
Well, they
okay?
definitely do. Yeah, and an ideology.
But people like Z and I, we saw this man for what he was, not a politician. So let's be clear about that. Don't blame me for thinking that I'm some sort of a MAGA, a Republican, right-wing lunatic, because I'm not. I know what's right and I know what's wrong. And that's why I stepped out of being a Democrat, because I saw the corruption. I saw the downfall of a political party using
the hypocrisy.
Oh my God, the hypocrisy. And what they have done as a party. I would, when I was younger and I was let's go back to early part of 2000, even the 90s, the mid to late 90s. I was a performer in a band called the Empire Hideous. I had my issues with politicians and politics, but I got it out as an artist. I got it out through my music, through my artwork, through my writing. But you've got people today who simply hate the man for the color of his hair.
Right. Oh, that orange meanie.
Yeah. And he tweets bad things. Listen, when you vote for somebody, you don't get everything you want. There were things Trump did that I was against. Do you know, like, he opened up the ability for hunters to go shoot big game in Africa, like elephants and rhinos and hippos and all that shit. I'm against that. All right? But my point is this. Even though he did that and I was against it, I still knew that what he was doing as a whole for the country and the world, mostly this country, but the world as well, were good, positive things. You're never going to get everything you want. Never.
Well, especially not from a true politician, because that's
Precisely.
Just to reinforce your point is the fact that, Donald Trump doesn't need the money. I mean, he didn't even take a salary.
Never took a salary.
So
for those, hold that thought. For those of you who don't know about Trump, he never took a salary as a president. What is it, $140,000 a year? He gave that to the veterans. Excuse me, I had to make that comment.
Tell me there's a politician that's ever given up their salary.
Never.
No, because especially that's the other thing is, like, it was clear to me. I mean, I've seen this man, my entire life, Donald Trump, on TV.
We all
in
did.
a variety of ways. Both you and I have been around the Northeast, so he's part of the news broadcast, for decades. Mm-hmm. So I already knew the man. But that's just it. He is a businessman. He already has made his money. He's happy. He has Mar-a-Lago. That is just a beautiful palace.
Which I had.
So. Right, and he's complete, and all of his businesses are doing well. I guess they're doing well. I have no idea, but I mean,
they're trying to shut him down now.
Well, I know that. That's all, again, a whole level of BS. But
still,
that's
this is a man who could still survive on like $1 billion and be okay.
Sure, well, who should not be able to?
Exactly.
But in either case, the founding fathers, I will go back to again and point out, they did not want career politicians. Because that they knew that's what could happen is if you start having people that only get rich off of their working for government, then you're going to have people that will compromise their positions so that they can enrich themselves. I just have to bring up Chuck Schumer real quick. I looked him up the other day.
Assholes.
Back in only in the late 2010s or something like that. I think this is on his Wikipedia, on the Wikipedia page. He was only worth a few $100,000. He's worth $81 million now.
Is that so? As a politician,
how do you
how
get
do you
to the
think
$81 million dollars
exactly,
and when you're only earning
see,
like $200,000 a year?
That's right. And the same with Joe Biden and his little stupid drug addict pornographic son Hunter. Okay? And nobody wants to address it. And for all that time, when at the end of 2019, when the laptop from hell came out, Trump was right again. He was right. And they all denied it. Oh, Russian collusion, misinformation, blah, 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 blah. Had that information come out prior to the election, the very possibility of Trump having won as opposed to President Corpse would have been much bigger than, the odds would have been much bigger. Okay? But, let's face it. We know what's going on. Okay? And any of you out there who are listening who think we are this right-wing conspiracy supporting, January 6th and all that. No, we're not. We're people who are smart enough to see what the logic and the reasoning and the logical bits of information that we get from the media and what's happening around us. We're smart enough to see it. I'm sorry, I don't mean to boast. I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I'm not an educated man. I am not a college educated man. I don't know. Are you Z?
Well, I spent a lot of time in college, but I didn't leave with a piece of paper.
But weren't you a professor?
Well, actually, I actually got a chance. Now that I have experience in my life, I got to be accredited adjunct professor at a community college for a few years.
But you never actually went to college, though, right?
No, I went to college.
Okay.
I went to college, but when you get accredited, they're basically recognizing your abilities and your knowledge, from your lifetime of experience, and you're getting allowed to teach because you need an MBA generally.
What I'm trying to tell everybody is that I didn't go to college. In fact, I almost quit high school at age 16. I was going to drop out, and I was going to join the Navy at 16. I was going to get my parents to sign for me. Thank God I didn't do it because I don't even like water. I was only going to join.
That probably wouldn't work out.
No, I was only going to join because my father was in the Navy and I wanted to impress him. But it's a good thing my brother talked me out of it. Anyhow, what I'm getting at is this. Z and I, we see things from a perspective of logic and reasoning. And we try to make sense out of things based on what we see, which, either good things or bad things. The topic of the show tonight being about morals is another example of what we're trying to express here. It's not simply about education. It's about how you're brought up. It's about how you're taught. Now, I'm lucky enough to have been brought up by two parents, okay, mother and father. And I know Z as my friend. He was not. In fact, Z had some tragedy in his life, which I'm not going to get into unless Z wants to get into it. But Z
point for a different point, different time.
Different point. Okay. So for those of you who don't know Z, he, again, the man behind the curtain, who, by the way, I couldn't have done this show without you, Z. So thank you for all the help that you've done, and I am sincerely grateful for allowing me to work with you to do this show. So thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it.
You are very welcome, Mike. And I am grateful for the opportunity as well to put this together and give you, give both of us this opportunity to honestly get this out of our system a little bit.
I think it's going to go well. I hope it's going to go well. We'll see. This is only our third broadcast, but we'll see.
Yep.
In any event, Z and I, we talk about this constantly. Z might be a little bit more conservative than I am, knowing that, my background with like Satanism and all that and rock and roll, but him and I have walked a similar path together, which I'm not going to get into as well, which kind of brought us closer together, and as we began to speak more as friends. And that's one of the reasons that we decided to do this show. In fact, Z came to me, said, hey, let's do this. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. We see things eye to eye. And that's why we're here, and that's why we're talking about things right now. And ultimately, again, I'm just trying to say, when we look at things, we try to see them in a way that is logical and fair. Okay? Did I say logical?
Yeah, logical and fair. And honestly, it's something else that we actually haven't used these words, but it's right and wrong, knowing what right and wrong is.
That is right.
So from my perspective, I've always had sort of out of the box sort of perspective. I'm an artist as well. I see and work in 3 dimensions because I've worked in 3D, programs and software, and I've created, virtual environments, and as well as I'm a sketch artist and so forth, and I've been working in graphic design for ages. But, I have what I like to call a perspective of the big picture. And I've been studying the big picture since I was in college, and I did go to college for 7 years. Unfortunately, I did not leave with a piece of paper, but I left with a great debt, but I didn't leave with a degree. And that's, again, a story for another day. But since that time, I got from that education an amazing perspective on the world. As I spent 7 years in college. I got a lot of education.
7 years? Did you learn anything? I hope you learned something.
That's just it. I learned most definitely. And from leaving that experience, I recognize the fact that, and I literally said this to myself in my 20s, like, okay, well, my education's not over. I'm just going to look at this. I'm going to the University of Life, and I'm going for the lifetime degree. And I just have to keep learning. And then thankfully the internet evolved and allows you to really learn, at your own pace about any subject you like. Yeah, as long as you're careful of the source. That's the problem.
The sad thing, as much as I agree with you on that statement about the internet, the sad thing is that many people, I don't want to use the word abused, but they don't really use it for its potential. Now, you know me, and the arrogant SOB that I am when it comes to the internet, and how much I effing hate it.
Well, it's complex. It's not an easy thing to wrap your head. I mean, no, I'm empathizing.
It's supposed to be laughing with me. That was a joke.
Okay, fine.
The point is, I'm not a fan of the internet, believe it or not. And Z knows that. He hates me for it.
I don't know if that's good for business, dude. You really may not want to say that.
He hates me for it because it's, you stupid SOB. No, he knows that I have a fear of it. It's because I'm not educated on it like he is, or many people are. And why is that? Personally, and it's just a personal thing, I tend to do things more so in my home, around my home, outside my home, on a canvas, on a microphone, in a book. I'm
on
not,
a piece of paper,
right.
Show them your notes.
Look, you want to see all my notes? Look at all my notes. See, these are all the notes I keep. But here's the thing: Z respects me for it because he knows that I'm being honest with him and how I feel about it. But the beauty about it is that Z will give me respect for the things that I do, and I'm able to accomplish or complete or succeed in, and also respects me for knowing that I am not, and I freely admit this, I am not a educated, successful person when it comes to understanding the internet. I'm not embarrassed about it. I just don't.
And I can honestly say I'm not either, or at least on the successful side. But I am certainly knowledgeable, and that's where my perspective whenever I meet any individual in this world, and has been this way for since I was a kid, I guess. But I appreciate people for who they are.
Right.
Not what
should.
I expect them to be, not what I imagine them to be. I try to get to know them as they are, and I try not to be judgmental about it. And it's just not my place at this point. And the few times that, I've wavered in that and been judgmental or whatever, it's like it bites me in the ass. It's like I appreciate every person because in the end, I recognize this is another sort of philosophy or principle I came up with. Every human being on the planet has the exact same problem. We all are trying to... Yeah, exactly, you. Each and every one of us are trying to find happiness before we draw our last breath. Mm-hmm. and try and find it and hold on to it for as long as we possibly can. So as long as you don't define happiness as hurting other people or doing, criminal activity or
right.
stealing and doing immoral activity, then, that's where you should be at.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more. It's about, as I just said, logic and rationality. You got to, and you have to be taught these things. You cannot go from childhood to young adult to adult and think that you're just going to become wise. I'm going to toot my own horn.
You can't assume it for everybody.
I'm going to toot my own horn just for a second here. I admit I'm not an educated man, but yet I read books constantly. I've read so many books over the years. I'm fascinated with history, and I've studied religions. There's those bubbles again. And I what I'm trying to say is that I learned what I feel was to be my own wisdom. I've learned as you get older, you become more wise into understanding what is right, what is morally right, what is morally wrong, and how to better yourself or better your life as an individual and those around you. Because ultimately that's what you want. We are supposed to be a civilized society. We took our learning and understanding from the Romans and the Greeks, especially the Romans. I mean, there's so much we learned about the Romans, from the Romans, that are still part of today's world. But I'm straying from the point.
Yes.
All I'm saying is that you don't learn wisdom. It has to be taught to you. And morals are one of the most important things, because that's what separates us from being a civilized society as opposed to a savage tribe.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is, like we've been discussing tonight, if you're not getting this from your family or from your religion, then where do you get it from? Well, I'm going to just throw this out here as another perspective. In my lifetime, I just say simply, I had a broken family. So quite honestly, I more or less learned everything from my education, but it was also from everything that in the media as well. So it's an interesting thing, and I'll throw this out here, and this will probably get some interesting comments. But I was always a big fan of Star Trek. When I was growing up, getting out of school in the 70s, the original series, I'd get out of school, and, the first things that were on TV was maybe Gilligan's Island and, Batman with Adam West. But then there would be an episode of Star Trek. And that show in particular, I know Gene Roddenberry wrote those, when they made all those episodes, they meant to have every episode have a moral. Mm-hmm. And it showed you clearly right and wrong on all sorts of topics, from, racism and hatred to, greed and the pursuit of money and wealth, or as opposed to just enjoying life and
right.
learning. Because knowledge is power. It does provide a lot of power and helps with fears. The more you know, the less you're afraid of.
The opinions and ideas expressed during this podcast belong to the speakers and are not a reflection on the services used to distribute this podcast. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. Warning: if you find the content of this program to be offensive, too bad. Hey folks, thanks for listening to Finding the Truth with Myke Hideous. Listen, don't forget to check out all my hideous merchandise, including t-shirts, blankets, hoodies, CDs, and my book, King of an Empire to the Shoes of a Misfit. It's all available only at MykeHideous.com. And don't forget, that's Myke with a Y, M-Y-K-E, MykeHideous.com. All right, folks, we are back on Finding the Truth with me, your host, Myke Hideous, and my partner in crime, Z. So we want to
hello, everyone.
Say hello, yes. Now go back in your cage. We want to say thank you so much for listening to our show, which is just starting out. We appreciate your support, and
Be sure to like and subscribe on whatever platform you enjoy.
Exactly, exactly. Please, and hit the notification button so you know when we have a new show coming out. By the way, just so you know, it's obvious that these shows have been pre-recorded. We, Z and I, have been discussing how we want to go into more of a live show where we can get the audience to respond, ask questions, maybe even call in. We are working on that, but please bear with us. We are a very new podcast, podcast, and we're trying to see how this goes. So we hope that you will enjoy this as much as we have enjoyed taking the opportunity to work on this program and get it to where we are right now, which is only the third show. So very many thanks to all of you who are listening. Thank you so much from both myself and Z.
Yes, we appreciate you listening, and please give us some input and feedback in the comments and so forth.
Please.
So to sort of, as a final thought on our topic tonight for morals, I wanted to at least bring up something in my perspective as I've studied the human condition, essentially. Is one of the things that I think is essential, a big part of people making immoral decisions, is sometimes around fears. They have fears of, at the very least, of not having enough money for certain things and eating and stuff like that. So maybe you turn to crime. But there's just, I know fear is a big problem for people in general, because when you go out in this world and you're just afraid of things, and it's sometimes because you're not knowledgeable of them, you're going to act on those fears. So it's just, that's one of the things that I think is an underlying cause of people, doing immoral things is, they get afraid of being caught in something that they know is wrong, and then they make it worse. I saw this other story today of a guy who was a porch pirate. And here a porch pirate. That's when, but you don't have that in your neck of the woods.
I don't even know what it is. What is it?
A porch pirate is somebody that will look at your home and see if you had deliveries from Amazon or other places, and they'll run up and they'll take your stuff. Yep.
I just call them assholes.
That is the more generic term for them. Porch pirate may be copyrighted, but. Yeah, it's just been a huge problem, and you can get see videos, all this stuff. But in either case, somebody's Ring doorbell caught this guy, stealing the package, and the homeowner was watching at the time. So they actually called up the police, and the police were in the area, and they went after him. And when they saw the guy that was described to them, and they had video on, the cops told him to stop. Now, here's a guy who just picked up a package, put it in his backpack, and it's so big it couldn't close the backpack, and he's holding another package. And his, cop says, "Hey, you, stop." And his idea is to run. And it's like, dude,
well, they think that they're unstoppable, today's criminals.
I guess that's, again, you've already made a stupid and immoral decision, and now you're going to compound it by running away. And where are you going?
They literally provoke the police so that the police have to now do their job with physical what would the word be? Physical
force. They got to go after you.
Right.
They got to chase you.
And then it's police brutality. Oh my God, I can't breathe. Oh my God, racism. Blah blah.
Well,
this is the idiocy of today's young or criminals in general. They're taking it to a level where they think they are the entitled victim, but they're not. They're just a bunch of uneducated. That's right. No responsibilities. They're uneducated and they're criminals. Period.
Yep. So the interesting part of this story is the guy takes off, and you're watching the cam from the police officers, and they run after him. And then there's this other camera shot from somebody else's house, because everybody has a camera nowadays. Everybody. So I mean, like, why are you going to do something illegal if you have a camera? Cameras are everywhere. Anyway, this other angle shows the guy running, and there's a car that was in the office. On the street. And this guy got out of the car and basically tackled the guy. And
Yep.
then him and the cop, basically wrestled the thief to the ground, and he got arrested.
Mm.
So I mean, there was a scene where actually a good Samaritan, somebody I think actually worked for the city where it happened, and he had no problem jumping out of his car, doing the right thing.
Good for him.
And here's this dumbass criminal, a lot of times these porch pirates, they don't even get anything. You're literally getting somebody's box of underwear or socks or something like that.
That's
It's
all.
not always something like a drone, but
You know,
in either case, it's a stunning thing that we're dealing with this level at this point, and it's getting worse, and it seems to be actually encouraged by the powers that be at this point, since so many cities have no bail laws.
That's right.
now.
And let's be
So just
specific, those
catching and
cities
releasing.
that are run by Democrats, because they like to have the criminals caught and then let them go 5 minutes later, because that's their
That's
way of
the new
thinking.
thing in the last 3 or 4 years. Every major city seems to have this no bail
Any
system,
major
and
Democrat city. Let's be specific
So-
here, Z.
No, you're right, and actually, that just occurred to me just thinking about it in general about the cities. Most of the cities are in some sort of level of just ridden with crime or just homelessness, and they've got the migrant problems.
Disarray.
I can't see a reason to go to any cities from Chicago to New York to
Nope.
to L.A. I mean San Francisco. I have no desire to visit any of these cities.
Nope.
And
Neither do I.
I was trying to think, is there a Democrat-run city that is doing really well?
Nope. No, there isn't.
I mean, I know there's 300 cities in this country or whatever. Please, if there's somebody that is where it's democratically run and the city is they have a surplus in the budget and the cops are all happy and there's a really low crime rate, and I don't think that place exists.
And before you go on, you can't even ask that question to a Democrat or a PC liberal. I'll tell you why. Because those people who are living in those cities run by Democrats, if they themselves are indeed a PC liberal Democrat, especially if they're woke, they're going to tell you right off the bat, oh yeah, our city's great. But they're going to ignore the fact that there's crime running wild, so to speak. I don't know if that was the proper term, but crime's out of control. Theft is out of control. You can live in San Francisco. You can walk right into a store with a garbage bag and just load shit up into the bag up to about $1,000 worth and walk out. And literally nobody's going to stop you. So those people who you would actually sit here and ask on this show, hey, is anybody out there? Do you live in a Democrat-run city that's in shambles? Do you think it's going good? And they'll say yes. And they'll say yes because they know that if they had a Republican running it, they'd be arrested.
Well, they can't give Republicans credit for anything.
No, of course not.
I mean, that's one
look
thing
at what
that's
the cartel's
disgusting.
doing. Look at what the cartel's doing right now with all the migrants who are crossing into the country. Okay.
Yeah, they're cashing out
They're-
because each
they're
one of those people are
cashing
paying
out.
$5,000 to get across the border
That's right.
to whatever handlers get them in there.
And sometimes
And,
these poor people don't even make it across. They're either badly beat up or murdered or raped or whatever, God knows what. The horrific things that are taking place are at the border are all a direct result of the administration currently and the
Not doing their job.
and President Corpse and Communist Harris for not doing their jobs. Exactly.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Harris. He gave her that job to go clean up the border. What?
didn't do
right
shit.
after she got in office, they got in office. No, I don't think she's done anything except
She went-
been cackling and laughing her way around the country for the last
She went
3
down
years.
there once, and she didn't even go to the bad section. She went to this
No.
nice, pretty place where they straighten it all out. They know nothing. This is the worst
care.
administration.
They don't care. They
And this
don't
is the
care.
worst administration the country has had in decades, if not 100 years, if more.
The problem is, that's their agenda. It's working. This is exactly what they want.
It's exactly what they want. You're
Sad
right.
as it is.
It's disgusting, and it makes me sick. I try to be. I've had my issues with the country in the world. I'm sorry. I've had my issues with the country over the years when I was a younger man, and I protested, but I protested through music. So when I see what happens today, I wouldn't consider throwing a brick at a veteran's head or through the window of a department store and stealing a bunch of boxes of Nike sneakers to say, well, you see, times are tough and I got to feed my family, so I'm going to feed them these Nike sneakers.
Well, take them home and sell them on eBay.
Exactly. So how starving can these people be if they've got the ability to break a window, steal sneakers, and sell them on eBay or on the streets? Okay, instead of a real thief. That's the wrong word. A real caring person who has to steal to get food. Let me tell you a little story real quick. In 1994, I got caught shoplifting. You know why?
What?
I got caught shoplifting.
Oh my God!
Twice. The first time I got.
You're a repeat offender.
Right.
Thanks for coming out.
But
on
let
the
me
show
explain.
there,
Let me explain. At the time in '94, I was suffering badly, economically, all right, financially. I had lost my job. I was out of work for a year and a half. My wife and I at the time, she was basically supporting me, and I was doing whatever I could to make a little ends meet. I couldn't find a job. So I ended up going to, whenever I'd go shopping, I'd steal stuff. And I would steal things that I needed that I couldn't pay for. Razors, batteries. I would steal, one time I actually stole a whole thing of like cookie dough. Not that I needed it, but
I don't think you'd want to go to jail for that. Like, you know,
well,
what'd you get busted doing? I was stealing cookie dough.
I also had a tube of toothpaste, toothbrushes, and a few other things.
Depends on how many you have.
Well, I only got a couple going on here, but you know what I'm saying is that I stole these things because I couldn't afford to pay for them. I didn't steal. It's not like I was stealing CD. Well, they didn't have CDs back. Well, they did have.
Well,
CDs.
you weren't stealing things of value that you're going to go sell necessarily.
Right. I was
people
trying
don't
to
usually take a tube of toothpaste and thinking, "Oh, I'm going to get $5."
I'm going to sell this on the street.
Hey man, you need some.
Hey, Crest. No, Crest. How about some AIM? Colgate.
Hey,
No.
You know what? I got Aquafresh here.
I got Aquafresh. Remember that? Anyway, all I'm saying is that
none of those companies are sponsors of the show, please.
all of those things that I did back then, I did for a reason, not because I just wanted to steal and be cool and look bad. I did that when I was a kid, when I was about 8. I stole from bubble gum and shit like that. But that was a kid. Kids do shit like that.
And well, I'm glad that you've at least confessed your sins here for our audience. And it's one thing. It's one thing when you steal for need, and not for greed. Mm-hmm. So I mean, when you see like the footage from last, I think it was last summer, where like some internet celebrity or influencer did something in New York City where he's giving away Xboxes or something, and he basically caused this small riot. Where like suddenly people were going into the Apple store and other stores and just like robbing them blind, like you see happening out in Los Angeles, and it's just like, what do you think that this is something you're entitled to? And then they actually had video of the event from a few people, of course, because everybody has their phones, and that's literally was the attitude of the rioters. Like, this is ours, this is our chance, this will get our stuff. Okay, this is all ours. No, it isn't.
Yeah. And you said the magic word before, entitlement.
Yeah.
I see entitlement more so on so many people these days, both male and female, black and white, whatever, straight, gay, whatever. The entitlement is unbelievable. And I think what these people fail to understand is that America doesn't owe you jack shit. America is an opportunity land, a land where you can make your own dreams come true. Every successful man or woman that has a successful story behind them on how they went from rags to riches, they built it themselves. That's the thing. As a Satanist, that is the thing that I understand most about a life. You make your own destiny. You carve your own path through life in order to get to where you want to go. So when anybody ever says to you, well, the reason we got the plague was because the devil brought it upon us.
Right.
No, devil didn't bring. That's just an excuse. I mean, I'm using Christianity
sure,
as an example to say how things were. Like, if things went bad, it was the devil's fault. But if the sun was shining and you found a pot of gold, that was because of God.
Right.
And that's not how it works.
No, it doesn't. And this is where my opinion, and I guess we bring it up since you say you're a Satanist. I consider myself a deist or a deist. And deist basically is someone who believes in a higher power but does not believe in organized religion. So, from that perspective, that's been my perspective for quite a while, on basically the world. I look at it from a logical reason. Deism was something that a number of the founding fathers actually believed in. It originated from the 17th century, I think, or 18th century.
I read about it briefly when I was studying occult.
Yeah, well, it's just the belief in a higher power, but he's not involved with our daily lives. And the whole
God?
thing with God. No,
right. Okay.
If you want to call him God or whatever it is, it's really not important. It's just the idea that there's something greater than us as humans, because we can't be at the top of the chain. If we think we are the greatest things in the world, then we get what we get. People with egos and attitudes, and politicians that are only looking to line their pockets and just benefit themselves, and they don't really care about the rest of the people. And
sadly, that's what it's become.
Yes.
So I think if we're going to wrap things up here, are we wrapping things up here?
Yeah, time to wrap it up.
So I just want to say, people, tonight's show, I did my best to describe what I see happening in this country and the downfall of morals and the proper way of things to keep us as a civilized society. And if that falls, if that completely falls, and it's, boy, it's close. And if something bad, if something catastrophic happens to this country, where all the electronics are knocked out, and all these entitled people don't get to use their iPhones and computers and Facebook and Instagram and X and this and that and the other thing, they're not gonna survive. They're not gonna survive, because you have to be able to separate that, so that if it comes to blows, you still got to remember we are supposed to be a civilized society. But if we get knocked back into the Stone Age, how would we build ourselves back up again? And has that happened before in the history of the world? So that's what I'm trying to make people understand.
And a civilized society is what provides a society that you can grow and achieve, your happiness. Find some happiness before you can, draw your last breath.
I kind of strayed a little bit, but you're right. That ultimately it's about doing the right thing and learning from others how to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. Be good to your brother. Be good to your sister. Be good to your parents, your neighbors, your friends. Do the right thing.
You got to be open-minded and listen and learn and take everything in. I mean, that's a lot of how I've grown my personal philosophies and principles and values, is just by being a listener and just learning from all the available sources, because unfortunately my parents really weren't there for me to provide that sort of guidance.
Which is sad. When I hear your story, it's very sad.
Well, thank you.
It saddens me, because I've known people who have been in the same, not exactly your story, but in the same shoes, either missing one or both parents. I always saw, I compared, like, for example, when I first started dating girls, in my late teens, and how I saw the difference of me having been brought up with two parents who were very conservative, very strict with rules, and brought the hammer down if I did something wrong, as a pair compared to the girls that I might have been dating whose parents were divorced. They were most likely living with their mother. And if I dated a girl who had two parents, like the girl I married, the difference between the two was unbelievably different. That was terrible, but unbelievably it wasn't hard to conceive, but it was like this, like, wow, these girls are different than the girls who were brought up with parents. So It's all about education, parenting,
Yes.
and education.
Yep.
That's
You
where you
gotta
get
have
wisdom from.
you have to get something good from both those sources if you can, and then if not, it's just I don't know. I guess it might be fate, or however you want to phrase it, or just the miracle. Like occasionally, people will get raised in a horrible situation, and they will recognize how horrible it is, and they will see the big picture, and they will get themselves out of it. But it is a rare story because they're just not getting it from any real authority. But if you somehow get that perspective, you can see your way out of the hell from which, people are living in for generations. It's just, it's a sad story because that's how I really feel about the immorality, the racism, the corruption. It's just a learned behavior. I mean, you can look at our current administration. It seems clear that, Joe was corrupted, and he corrupted his son and corrupted the rest of his family. Who knows where that started, but it probably came from his dad. And the same thing with so many other individuals and on so many different levels. They get taught a certain way, and then they do the best to, that's how they get happy, is by
That's right.
doing things that are wrong.
Yeah, exactly. You got to know the difference between the two. It's
Just so sad. I mean, there's so many people that just take advantage of all sorts of systems. I've heard it my entire life, where people will be like, okay with filing a false claim, with insurance or something, or they'll be okay with making a false statement on whatever their return and getting extra money. And I even remember having a conversation with this one guy when I had a construction job, and he outright admitted to walking into the office of a gas station once, seeing a bag of money, grabbing it, and just walking out, and no one saw him.
Wow.
He got like 20 grand out of that. So
wow.
And he had no problem doing it. I was like, and it was the guy's fault, the owner of the business, who bothered to leave the office open.
Like, who the hell does that, man?
Yeah, I mean, the guy probably went to the bathroom.
I'm going to leave this bag of $20,000 on the table here, and I'm going to go take a poop.
Yeah, but it's not, that guy's fault that, I could take this,
Of course not.
There is morality in other places. I recently saw a video of a couple that I like to watch on YouTube in their channel, and they're in China. China is, as what we all know it is. But they pointed out at one point they had really expensive... What? China is communist China. But it's very safe there. They talked about how they could leave their, $2,000, camera, right on the seat, walk to the bar car, and come back, and the camera would still be sitting there. Because it's just that people don't, there's a minority of people that want to be morally corrupt there.
Do you know why? Because in countries like that, and especially in the Arabic countries, and I may have mentioned this to you before, when you, let's take, for example, Saudi Arabia. You steal a loaf of bread, they'll cut your fucking hand off. You rape, all right, Iran, okay? Iran. You rape a woman, they will take you in front of the family of the woman who you abused, and they will chop your member off in front of that family. Tell me that's not good revenge.
Well,
if you kill somebody,
I guess, but I mean, also the penalty for adultery is stoning. So I mean, if you're in an unhappy marriage and you decide to,
point. I think you're missing my point.
No, I
All
get
I'm
your
saying,
point. There is more of a the punitive results of your actions is far severe than what we have right now, which is catch and release. You don't. The only time you're going to stay in jail is if you kill somebody.
That's what I'm telling you. The good thing about this country is that we have a court system which is also corrupt at this point. But the fact is, if it worked properly, well, I'll tell you, you people are lucky I'm not a judge or a cop, because I would be like, do you ever see Dirty Harry? Because that would be me. If you were to, as I just said, in Iran, if you kill a person or do something terrible in which you are proven guilty, I mean, they don't take shit, man. There's no waiting list for, Skid Row. There's no waiting list for 10 years. You're going to wait on.
You mean death row, right? Because there's no wait.
Sorry, Skid Row. Not the band.
There is no waiting list. You can go there anytime. They'll accept you.
So what I'm saying is that there's no waiting list on death row where you can wait to appeal over and over and over, and the court and the judges and the lawyers will just drag it out. So that this guy who killed an entire family, okay, and there's proof of, like for example, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, okay, proven guilty. You know, they've got all the proof on him. And how many years did he wait until he was executed? My point.
It seems like your average person that gets sentenced to death waits at least 20 years before they're put to death.
So
it's
the taxpayers pay for their cable TV and their hamburgers and their comfy prison pillows.
No, I'm unfortunately I was, as a bleeding heart liberal, I was, not for the death penalty. I was like, the state shouldn't be responsible for killing people. It's wrong, which is most of the opinion in Europe and a lot of other countries that are basically socialist. And then I unfortunately went through the tragedy of dealing with having my father murdered.
Oh.
And then after that happened, I quickly realized that once somebody has indicated that they are a monster in this world and they have no value for human life and are willing to take human life just for their own gain or whatever reason they want to come up with, you're a monster. You don't deserve to live anymore. And unfortunately,
in the very definition of monster.
Yeah, very definition, especially after you've done it more than once.
Right.
So in the case for my father, unfortunately, that was his second murder. So like his first murder was for a 79-year-old grandmother that he raped before he murdered. So I mean, once you've really indicated to the public at large that this is the individual you are, I don't know why we need to keep them around.
That's right. When Z told me the story about his father and what happened, I was literally sickened by the story. It made me almost physically sick. I was disgusted that this piece of shit, this filth, was allowed to be released when he was. Your dad was trying to help the man.
Yeah, I was trying to help him get a job.
And he did what he did to your father. And I'll tell you, to this day, I it angers me so much because obviously I know you as a personal friend, whereas other stories that I hear like this get me just as angry. In a very quick 1 minute 60-second story, I'm going to tell you, when my house, when we sold the house for where my father was living after my mother died, so this was like 2013 or 14, we moved my father out of the house that he built back in the 50s. And when the family that moved in, this black family moved in, and a few months after they moved in, headlines on newspapers and on television read about the shooting of a 12-year-old girl shot point blank, killed, right in Paterson, New Jersey. 2 weeks went by. They had no idea who killed this little girl. Until one day, after 2 weeks, an 18-year-old kid walked into the police station of Paterson, New Jersey, and said, "I confess, I'm the one who killed the 12-year-old girl. I shot her." Guess where that guy was living? My
Really? Wow.
house. He lived in my house after all the love and family values that were generated and took place in that home, my home. This animal, this savage piece of shit. That's me being kind. He killed a little girl for no reason at all. Shot point blank. And he lived in my house.
Yeah, that's shocking.
I mean, when my brother told me this story, I was sickened by it as well. To know that, as I just said, the love and the home that was created by my family, my parents in particular, they built that house. I was born and raised, well, not born in that house, but my brothers were born and raised in that house. And this piece of shit lived there and killed a little girl. So, yeah, I get it, man.
Well, that's where the house definitely was made with a good heart, but you can't help the individuals that may live there.
Of course, yeah.
So, sadly, that's a very sad story, especially when a child gets, killed. And unfortunately, that's another one that makes me sad as well. But we don't need to go too deep down that road.
I just wanted to bring it up in comparison to what you went through, which obviously there's no comparison.
There's no comparing them. But
my heart, it breaks for you on what you had to go through with your father. It literally breaks my heart knowing what your poor father went through, and
thank you. I appreciate
all
that.
out of an act of being kind and generous to what the guy was kind of a stranger to your father. Like, he knew him, but he wasn't a friend.
Yeah, he only known him for 6 months, and he knew he was looking for a job, and he was on the street. And so, he actually went for a job interview with the organization my dad worked with the week before he killed him.
This is why I carry a gun.
Yeah, and so he let the person in thinking it was safe to, but he had no idea that he was a previously convicted murderer.
Terrible.
So, it's just a sad reality. The monsters in our world are not the ones you see in the movies and on TV. They are people that can look just like everybody else.
And they're worse.
And you just never know, and that's where you just need to be careful as you get to know people, especially in the internet age. It's too easy to fall for a pretty picture and a profile and some nice words and think you're dealing with something real. So anyway, we can get into another topic on that one.
Anyway.
This is kind of the end of the show there, Myke.
Yep.
So do you have any final thoughts for our
audience? I just want to say, again, everyone, thank you so much for helping us and supporting us in our early episodes of Finding the Truth with Myke Hideous. Me, Myke Hideous. I'm Myke Hideous. Folks, so especially if you want to get my book, which I wrote myself, it's called King of an Empire, To the Shoes of a Misfit, The Memoirs of Myke Hideous. It is a book about my time spent creating a band and becoming a performer. It is available only on my website, which is MykeHideous.com. And don't forget, folks, my name is spelt with a Y, M-Y-K-E, Myke. And lastly, you can also contact me on Facebook, which is facebook.com/HideousMyke. And again, Myke spelt with a Y. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Z. Do you have anything that you want to...
Well, yeah, just to make clear to the audience that our episodes are going to be available on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And on YouTube in particular, you get a chance to take a look at Myke Hideous, the rock legend, the rock god. But still, you'll get to hear our banter and so forth.
You know it's true.
Yep, there you go. So, all right. Well, I just want to point that out to our audience. Please also you'll find the links also on MykeHideous.com, Myke with a Y. And we have the links to all the places to hear our show there. Also, look out for our merchandise soon. We'll have a link available so you can check out some cool merchandise with Myke Hideous's name and the show and some other cool items that we are working on designing.
And if I may just interrupt for 1 second, for those of you who do know me, who are Hideous fans, I want you to understand that this is going to be a separate store where you can buy the merchandise specifically for Finding the Truth with Myke Hideous. So as opposed to the MykeHideous.com, where I have other stuff available, music and my horrible artwork T-shirts and stuff. The Finding the Truth of Myke Hideous merchandise will be separate. So just so you know that, folks, okay? I just wanted to bring that out for you.
Excellent. Definitely a good thing to talk about. So there's opportunities to support our show and to enjoy everything that is hideous at MykeHideous.com. So, all right, well, we're done with our show. This is our third one. It's in the can. So I wish you a good night, Myke. It's been fun bantering with you again and going over today's issues. I hope we helped enlighten some people on morals, or at least inspired them to start looking at the young people around you and helping them understand what they are.
Good luck with that. All
right,
folks. Well, thanks very much for listening again tonight. I'm very grateful. We are very grateful. And on that note, you'll be hearing from us on our next episode. Thank you very much. You've been listening to Finding the Truth with me, Myke Hideous, and my colleague, Z. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.